Namandapts, 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 namandapts. Kansho. Namu Amida Butsu.
Namu Amida Butsu.
Namu Amida Butsu. Namu Amida Butsu. Namandap. Namandap.
Good morning. Today is July 31st, 2022. We welcome you to the New York Buddhist Church's Sunday service, streaming live on YouTube and Facebook. We will prepare for today's service with quiet sitting. Please sit up straight, gently calm your mind, and follow your breath. begin service with the chant Juseige, Nembutsu, and a Koko merit transference. Vandana and Tisarana will follow. We will then read the Jodo Shinshu pledge, which you should have as a handout, and it'll be on screen. And then Reverend Gary Shobo Jaskula will give our Dharma talk. To end service, we will sing our Gathas Namu, Amida, Butsu, and Nembutsu. Thank you for attending.
Juseige is found on page 93 of your purple service books. Gagon shosegan ishimu jodo shigan fumanzok seifu joshogak gao muryoko fuidai seshu fusai shobingu seifu joshogak gashi chobundo myosho chojipo kukyo mishomon seifu joshogak ryokujin shonen jo eshu bongyo shigumu jodo ishoten ninshi jinriki endaiko fushomu saido shoujo san kumyo kosai shuyakunan kai hichi egen meshi kon moan hei sokusho akudo sudaten zen shumon kosojo manzok iorojipo nichigan shujuki tenko on bugen ishukai hozo koseku dokuho jo odai shuchu seppo shishiku If you're able, for the reading of the Vandana and Tisarana, which is found on page 5 of our service.
167.
167?
Namo tassa
Namu Amida Butsu. Namu Amida Butsu. Namu Amida Butsu. Namu morning, everyone. Nice to see you all here today. So we will now have the reading of our pledge, which is the handout which you were given. Has a little picture on it. If you don't have one, please raise your hand and Ruth will bring you one. No? Good. Okay. We're going to read this together. Breaking out of my shell, I will share a warm smile and speak gentle words, just like the kind Buddha, not becoming lost in my greed, anger, and ignorance. I shall think and act with an open mind, just like the calm and peaceful Buddha. Not putting myself first, I will share in the joy and sadness of others, just like the compassionate Buddha. Realizing the gift of life I have received, I shall strive to live each day to the fullest, just like the Buddha who tirelessly works to liberate all. Namu Amida Butsu. Namu Amida. So we're very fortunate today to have Reverend Gary Shobo Jaskula here to share the Dharma with us. So please relax and listen attentively to Reverend Gary. Thank you.
So good morning, everyone. Is the microphone working? Good. Always an issue. So today, thank you for coming out on this hot summer day. Not as hot as it's been, but it's been cooler. I'd like to have a lighter Dharma talk. I hope so. I keep it light. I always say that and then make it really heavy. But this is a little bit lighter today. And I'm going to talk about, we just read this hour pledge, this thing. I wasn't planning to talk on this, but it actually works out perfectly. This is a prayer or a aspiration written by our present Gomonchu, Koshin no Tani. Okay, this is a poem written by him. And he sort of aspires to what we want to be as people, as followers of this school of Buddhism. I mean, all Buddhists have a commonality, but in this school of Buddhism, we want to be like this. We want to break out of our shell. We don't want to become lost in our own greed, anger, and ignorance. Act and think with an open mind, like the Buddha. We don't want to put ourselves first. We want to share in the joy and sadness of others. And we want to realize the gift that we have received and strive to live each day to the fullest, like the Buddha who tirelessly works to liberate all. So that's what we hope. That's our aspiration with the Gomonchu. That's what we hope. And I want to talk about some person who did this perfectly. You know, we have in our tradition, Shin Buddhist tradition, the tradition of the Myokonin. The Myokonin are often, or were often, I'm sure they're still around, illiterate people or people of less than perfect education, but who through their lives realized perfectly the teaching of the Buddha, and just in living, they shared it with others. They shared it with others. And the Myokonin is often translated as a wonderfully good man or a wonderfully good person, because they could be women as well. And they're like the courageous heroes of other sects. They are often simple people whose testimony just gives a lot of substance to what we hope to achieve, right? And so this guy that I'm going to talk about today is called Genza. I'm sure many of you have heard of him. Genza is someone who didn't die all that long ago. He died as a Myokonin. Many of them are from the 17th through the 19th centuries, but this guy, Genza, was born in 1852, and he died only in 1930. And his actual name was Ashikaga Saburo, or Saburo Ashikaga. And his birthplace was in Aoyacho Yamane, Tottori Prefecture, by the seaside of Japan. Okay, so he was a farmer. He was, as I said, he was born on April 15th, 1852. He lived in that town of Yamame until he died. And that village remains, it's still there, so you can go. I've never been there myself, so I'm not going to say how it is, it's still there, and he passed away in February 20th, 1930, at the age of 78. I didn't do the math. I don't know if that works, but in any event, his attainment of shinjin, or what we call faith or confidence, was such that it really inspired all the people around him, and he became somewhat famous. But he has a very interesting story, and there are many stories told about him, but I'm going to focus on one in particular and then do maybe a couple of others. We often think in our tradition, or we often hear in our tradition, that one should meet a good teacher in one's life. And we call that a zenji shiki, a fellow being who guides us towards the attainment of shinjin. And that's often thought of as a sage or family member or someone wise who says, say the name of the Buddha. Don't worry about aspiration. The Buddha has taken care of it. Say Namu, Amida. But a zenji shiki can be anyone. Not only anyone, it can be anything. It can be an animal. It can be a plant. It can be a rock. Whatever really makes you realize the teaching, this teaching, that's your zenji shiki. And we have them all around us if we care to scratch the surface and just look. But in Genza's case, the zenji shiki, his zenji shiki, was an ox. So the story goes that Genza, when he was 18 years old, he and his father, they were farmers, they had a small farm. They were working together in the rice field, and suddenly his dad became ill and went home to rest. And Genza goes home at noon for lunch, and at that time his father tells him that the end is near and that he had one last request to make of Genza, one last request. And he said, "After I die, trust in Oya-sama. I don't have money for you or anything like that. I only have one thing. Trust in Oya-sama." Genza was a good guy, he says, okay. 2 points in his father's unusual request bothered Genza. But he said yes. He's a good son, and his father did pass away. And Genza became, at the age of 18, as often happens, the head of the family. And I should say, before we go on, that Genza, was a good child of his village. He kept his family's possessions together. He got married. He had children. He wasn't really rich, but he wasn't poor either, from what I understand. So Genza, but he accepted his father's, it took it very seriously, trust in Oya-sama. And we shouldn't think that he was particularly devout at this point either. So Genza had 2 points that bothered him. One was, who was this Oya-sama? Oya-sama, as many of you know, means beloved parent, right? Beloved parent. Could be either mother or father or both. So who was Oya-sama? And the second, what does trust mean? What does that mean? And these 2 questions, to use Genza's words, he says, it began to bother me day and night, continuing through the remainder of that year into the following year. So he's really thinking it out. Really thinking it out. Finally, in the spring, he says, my eyes opened and I began to attend services in earnest regularly at the Gassho temple to hear the teachings. That's his local temple in town. And so he goes, like we do, to the church or temple, hears the teachings, he hears all about the whole spiel, other power, Amida Buddha, crosswise transference, you name it. And, but it's like, no. In fact, this didn't bring any solution to Genza. So if we're troubled with the teachings ourselves, intellectually, this is fine. This is what is supposed to happen. But it didn't bring solutions. In fact, it brought more problems. And one of the more pressing questions was that the teaching emphasized, as we all know, the easy way. But what was so easy about the easy way? What is this easy way? Here, the easy way is in case those who are not familiar with Jodo Shinshu, is a reference to the very basis of Jodo Shinshu teaching, that it is through hearing the Dharma that one is transformed. Through trusting in the Dharma, and therefore no form of disciplinary practice like meditation or things like that are necessary. That doesn't mean we don't do them, but they're not required. And this bothered Genza, as it does many people who come to us today. This bothered Genza for the next 15 years. 15 years. And here we have to remember that although Genza questioned the teachings, he did in fact attend regularly. He was a model adherent. Finally, however, one day it all came together for him. And that in that Genza supposedly entered the ocean of the vow through the graces of an ox. It came about like this. One summer morning, Genza goes up to the mountains with his ox for firewood. In different versions of the story, it could be hemp or a type of grass, but here in this version I'm using, it's firewood. But in any event, in those days, grazing or going up and taking firewood from not your property was limited to certain days of the year, right, or times. But Genza, so he's going to go up and get that firewood, and he wants to get a lot. So he goes up with the ox, and he then loads the ox, and loads the ox, and loads the ox, more and more and more, until all you can see are the two legs down there. You know, and imagine it, all the firewood on this ox. And then at that moment, the ox did not complain. The ox and Genza go back to town, to his property. The ox is very sure-footed, not complaining. The ox brought all that firewood or all that hay or hemp down to his home. And Genza realized, in his own words, suddenly I was made to realize the Buddha's mind. And he says, logically, the firewood, or hemp, or whatever it was, is the karma of everybody. And the ox is Amida Buddha. And it was therefore Amida who helped Genza carrying the heavy burden of firewood or karma. Right? That's how he's thinking. And that is like, so normally you and I, if we were to say what was going on here, it's like Genza goes up to the mountain, gets the firewood, and comes back. Good job, Genza. But actually, Genza understands, having mulled over the teaching for more than a decade now, that actually he does nothing. It's the ox that does everything. Everything. Also, you know, the ox knows the road. I mean, it's, you know, the ox did not need to be led. They make it back to the house. So this really is, we understand this as the teaching of other power, you know, and this is what Genza realized deep in his heart. And then after that, it all clicked. All these teachings clicked for Genza. That his obtaining release, the karma, the thing that keeps us on this side of samsara, is carried by Amida Buddha, not by himself. If he had to carry the firewood by himself, he'd still be up on that mountain. But he didn't. And he realized great joy at that moment. It just all clicked for him. I don't know if it all clicks for us, but it clicked for him in a very profound way. And he regarded that ox as his personal Zenjishiki, his personal Dharma friend, forever after that. And he thought the ox was his good teaching, and he said that the ox is my teacher, Zenjishiki, and the ox was revered so highly by Genza that he added a room in his house for the ox and took the ox in. So, and so And apparently, if one were to visit, that house is still standing. If one were to go there, I believe one can go there, and I don't know if it's open to the public, but the family, his descendants, still live in that house. And the ox's room is part of the house, and they use it. And apparently, the house burned, had fires a couple of times since 1930, and the ox's room didn't burn, you know. And so it's still within the house today, and apparently the family uses it as an extra room, and it's used frequently by the family. And so this was the great moment for Genza, and it kind of, you know, it's part of his own religious experience. He had the preparation, he had the study, you know, in his own way, and but he realized something, you know, that, you know, they don't talk about the minister of this town. They talk about Genza, you know, Genza, and it wasn't just this understanding that after that he was an incredibly eccentric person, almost from another planet. And there were many, 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 many stories about him. One of them is Genza's out in his yard and goes to the persimmon tree, and he notices that around the persimmon tree there's been a little fence, barbed wire or something. And Genza goes, "What is this?" And the son says, "Oh, I put that up because the kids are stealing the persimmons." And Genza says, "But they'll get hurt, take it down." And so Genza puts up a ladder and says, "This way they won't get hurt." Okay, so, and the son says, "Well, they'll steal everything we have." And Genza says, "That's all right, well, we have enough." This is the way Genza lived, and there's many, many stories like this. Another funny one is Genza saw a man eating with his horse. They were driving along the road, and the horse is eating beans on the side of the road in Genza's field. Of course, this is, you know, farmers hate this. And but Genza goes up and says, "Young man, the beans on this side are not so hot. Come over here where the beans are a lot better." And, you know, the guy freaks out and takes off right away. Is embarrassed, but still, the idea is that Genza does things like this in a completely uncalculated way. That's why he's thought to be a kind and good man, you know. And there are many, many other stories. When he lost his hat, he was genuinely happy for the person who would find the hat because that person would be warm. When he walked in the water, when it was raining outside, he said, "Oh, I'm so grateful that my nose goes this way and not the other way." You know, so this is like somebody from another planet for us, right? I mean, but really, he behaved differently like that because that's the way he actually was. You know, that's the way he actually was. He didn't do it to get something. That's just what he was. He realized something about the teachings with the ox. So he didn't say, "I'm going to be grateful so that I will get blessings." He just gave away everything he had. You know, but he was shrewd enough, and he was fortunate. I'm sure his wife and children made sure he didn't give it all away. And you know, so he was an interesting guy, and I just like to put him out there for you to think about, because this is a different kind of life. This is like the life of a saint, very different than us. I'll tell one final story. This one is this is at the end of Genza's life. Okay, so the early one is they're still with the horses, and in the fields. This one, there's trains and stuff like that, so it's in the 20s. So there was a teacher, itinerant teacher named Tenko Nishida, who was a spiritual leader in the Japan of that time, at the beginning of the 20th century. I don't really know anything else about him except this story. But he taught people about humility and service to others. Okay, and this was something somewhat revolutionary, apparently, at the time. And he and his followers would often go around and clean public toilets and stuff like that, jobs that were considered too dirty or low for other people. But he did it as kind of a pious practice, you know, in other religions, including Buddhism, but other religions as well. We would look at that as like a mortification, as somebody who was doing for others so that others would benefit, and then ultimately you would benefit. And he met Genza at one point. He comes to the town in the area, in the Tottori prefecture. He's speaking there, giving a lecture, and Genza wanted to hear him, you know. But unfortunately, he took the train, and unfortunately, he arrived after the lecture was over. So Genza talks to Tenko, and, you know, he said, "I hear you've come a long way to hear what I had to say. I'm so sorry." And Genza said, "Well, it is you who have come a long distance to talk to us. You must be very tired. And so, you know, let's sit down together." And then Genza asks, you know, "What was the subject of your talk earlier?" And Tenko says, "You know, as we grow older, we are apt to get impatient. So we must suppress our anger and sympathize with other people, for they too have their troubles." So this guy telling Genza this. And Genza thinks about it, and he says, "To this day, I have never condoned others, for I am the one who has been condoned without my knowing it." And Tenko, the teacher, didn't quite understand, you know, and it is sort of strange, right? You would have think that these two would really be totally on the same wavelength. You know, Genza would have said, "Yeah, well, you know, me and my ox, we do a few things for others, you know." But no, so he didn't understand. It seemed like, he says he didn't, so he asked him to explain it a little bit, and Genza said, "I have never been in a position to forgive others because I was always wrong. I was the one to be forgiven." So this is the heart of to me, what Genza is about, is that most of us are like the other guy. The other guy is not meant to be thought, or should not be thought of as a bad person. I think he's the one I think we would rather have to lunch than Genza, you know. But he wants to do good. He wants to make good happen in the world. But Genza does not. Genza is good. He doesn't do good. He is good. And that's really what I have to leave to you today. To just think about that. I don't think, like if I were to tell you, go out and copy Genza, that would be totally misunderstanding Genza. Because Genza didn't do those things to be copied. He just was like that from his understanding. If I were to say copy Genza, it would be find your ox, find your Zen Jushiki. So I just leave you with that and think about. It's a conundrum, right? It's something to think about. It's different than our usual way of thinking. But it really is at the heart of Jodo Shinshu, what happened to Genzo. And he's considered to be a great treasure for that, and revered to this day. And we're talking about him in another language far, far away. And it's great. So so thank you for listening, and let us say Namu Amida Butsu, 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 Namu Amida Butsu. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Reverend Gary. Very much enjoyed the anecdotes about Genzo. We certainly have a lot to learn from such stories, and we can ponder them and think about Genzo's humility and the source of that. So I'll just say that because Gary left us with quite a lot to think about. Thank you so much, Reverend Gary. So next, let's see. Next we will have, I believe, our Gathas.
Yes.
So will everyone please rise? Our first Gatha will be Namu Amida Butsu, which is on page, let's see, is that? Thank you. 174.
Page
You
174.
think I would know them by now, right? I was never good at math. Please, for Nembutsu. Nembutsu.
Namu.
Namo Daosu.
Namu.
Namo Daosu. Namo Daosu. Namo Daosu. Please be seated. So this will shortly bring us to the close of today's service. This is a time that we give announcements of upcoming events. And the most important announcement I have concerns next week. Next week is our annual Hiroshima and Nagasaki Memorial Service. This is a very special service for us, as the statue of Shinran Shonin, which graces the front of our temple, survived the atomic blast, and you can still see scorch marks on the bottom of Shinran's robes. No, it's not radioactive, maybe slightly. But the statue embodies a very interesting perspective. It came here and was welcomed here in 1955. So it withstood the blast at Hiroshima, and it also faced downtown when 9/11 occurred. So we will have for that service some special guests, some surviving hibakusha, who are people who lived through the atomic blast as children. They will be here at 11 o'clock, and they will speak in Japanese and through their translator in English. At 11:30, we will have our regular service, followed our regular service, and the speaker for that service will be Hoshina Seki, who is president of the American Buddhist Study Center, which is located on the 3rd floor of our adjacent building. And she is also the daughter of our founding minister, Reverend Hosen Seki. And so Hoshina was here when the statue came. And she will talk to us about it and give us a little of the history and share her thoughts with us. So we're very excited and pleased to be welcoming for that service, both the hibakusha, who are here to speak at the UN and who graciously offered some time for us, as well as for Hoshina Seki, who will tell us more about the statue of Shinran Shonin in front of our temple. So after that service, we will be closing for several weeks for the summer, and we will reopen on September 11th for our 9/11 memorial service. So during the time that we are closed, if you miss us, you can go to our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/c/New York Buddhist Church, where we keep a library of past services. And you can play that, chant with us, and re-listen to any Dharma talks that you may have either missed or would like to listen to again. You can also read about Jodo Shinshu and about our temple on our webpage, which is newyorkbuddhistchurch.org, one long word. And we would always like to welcome newcomers. There are a few here. And we like to welcome new members. If you'd like to become a member, you can find the membership form also on our webpage. If you scroll down to the bottom or you go to the membership page, there is a link. And there is also a link for donations. We really do appreciate your support. Your donations, your dana, helps to support the upkeep of this facility. We are very privileged to have this building, which Reverend Seki acquired, way long ago. And it was basically falling down. And the members spent 20 years or more to do basic renovations, and it's an ongoing project because it's a very old building. So it is an ongoing project for us to keep this facility open for you. And it is you who we have to thank. It is you who come here and make the content of our talks and our services meaningful. So thank you for attending today. And I would be remiss if I did not thank everyone who made this service possible today. Our greeter was Ruth Funai. Thank you, Ruth. Our pianist today is John Skelly. Thank you so much, John, for coming in and playing piano for us. And our tech team today is manned by the inimicable David Brady, who gives so much of his expertise and time to get us on air, and also adapted our sound system and our lighting so that the service goes smoothly. And I would also like to deeply thank Reverend Gary Shobo Jaskula for a very meaningful talk today. Reverend Gary lives way upstate near Hudson, so we don't get to see him every week, but his trips downstate to the New York Buddhist Church have never stopped, and we appreciate both his dedication and his Dharma sharing. Thank you, Reverend Gary. So is there anyone here for the first time today? If so, we'd like to welcome you and learn your name so that we can welcome you back properly, hopefully the next time you come. So this young man had his hand up. Could you stand and give us your name, please?
So I'm not from the US, and my name is a little weird for English speakers. You can call me Eitan.
Eitan? Eitan. It's so nice to welcome you today, Eitan. And we hope you will visit us. We often get people who are here from other countries who just want to visit and experience Buddhism, and sometimes they are Jodo Shinshu Buddhists who are just, they want to experience what service is like in the US, or they're from temples in another state. So we're always pleased to welcome you as a new Dharma friend. Thank you for coming today. And
I'm Michael. Thank you very much for welcoming us.
I'm Caitlin.
Caitlin?
Yes.
Thank you so much for coming today. How did you come to hear about us?
I had a friend recommend you guys and said it was just a really lovely place, so we finally were able to come and check it out.
Well, thank you to your friend. And thank you for coming. We hope to welcome you back. We also have classes online for those of you who may not live nearby. Those two will be stopping in August, but come September, we will resume. The list of classes are also on our website. So with that, our service today comes to a close. So please join me in closing Gassho. With great gratitude for all the Mayakonen who inhabit our lives, all those who give to us without reservation, who give to all unthinkingly, with gratitude for the great compassion and wisdom which we know as Amida Buddha, which embraces us always, never forsaking us, just as we are. Namu Amida Butsu. Namu Amida Butsu. Namu Amida Butsu. Thank you. And if anyone has not yet done oshoko or incense offering, we invite you to. Thank you.